And in the spotlight tonight, there is a big vote in California that's not about any politicians on the ballot. It is about secession on the ballot. Several California counties are actually holding votes on seceding to create a new state. At this hour, results are still coming in Del Norte and Tehama counties, where residents voted on a ballot measure proposing to form a 51st state. They want to call it Jefferson. Now, that would join 4 other northern counties that already voted to join this movement. There's another secession vote on this in Butte County next week. Organizers say secession will ensure rural and smaller communities have more power and more control over their own particular way of life. Documentary filmmaker Alexandra Pelosi got a first-hand account of why they feel the need to secede.
I'm here at the northern border of California, where they're voting on whether or not to secede from the rest of California and form the 51st state.
Clear front! Fire!
Why do you want to secede from California?
The reason we need to do this is because our survival depends upon it. Most of the legislators in Sacramento have never been to the northern rural counties. And what we would like from Sacramento is representation so that we can help determine the direction our own lives take.
Order arms. Quiet in the ranks. Men and women will die here today. I want you to think about that.
So you're starting your own civil war now.
This is the civilest of wars. This is about taxation without representation. We know our votes don't count. The urban agenda, the urban legislators absolutely overwhelm us. The time has come for 51. We have to do this now.
Sorry for interrupting you.
No, that's all right. We're just having some fun fighting.
We have nothing against San Francisco or Los Angeles. We just that there's laws that get passed in those areas by those representatives that don't necessarily have the viewpoint of what we have up here. If the government's not willing to come up here and visit with us, we can't expect them to understand us. Sometimes I feel like I'm treated like a foreigner in my own state. Sometimes I feel like they treat Secede County like it's another world or another country. Like we have to have an embassy up here just so we can have representation from Sacramento to come up here and actually pay attention to us.
It's totally different cultures. We're rural people being told what to do by a bunch of multi-millionaire people. They're all fine with smoking pot, but if you want to own a firearm, well, I guess that's not good. So it's okay to get stoned, but it's not okay to defend yourself if somebody breaks into your house.
But if you get your 51st state, how are you going to sustain yourselves? You don't have business here. Like Hollywood has movies. San Francisco has tech. You don't have anything here.
This area has ranching, it has farming, it has lumber, it has mining, it has fishing along the coast. There are lots of things that can be done around here, and I think the only way to do it is let us have our own state so we can live the way we want to.
Joining me now, former San Francisco Mayor Willie Brown and political strategist Che Komanduri, who's worked for President Obama and Senator Clinton. Welcome to you both.
Thank you. Thank you.
Mayor Brown, let me start with you. What's going on out there?
Well, that has been some form of a concept for a very long time. People have wanted representation tailored to just them. Even though they're in a distinct minority in terms of numbers, they're a very poor place. They do not offer anything to the rest of the state of California except maybe a little bit of land, and there's not much population. And so they really are struggling for what they don't have, and that is exclusive representation. They have general representation like the rest of us. They want exclusive.
Yeah, and Che, I know you've been a practitioner of politics and you're a student of political history. Secession is a big recurring theme in our history, and not just in the South, I should mention. We got a map here that shows what the U.S. would actually have looked like if all the previous attempts had been successful. Kind of crazy. We'd have 124 states in total. What do you make of this sort of recurring or perpetual interest in and out of the South, in and out of the Confederate reference to the politics of secession?
Yeah, look, this is not really a new problem. I mean, the country mouse and the city mouse have been at loggerheads since the time of Aesop. But I would argue that this really is a new phenomenon, something that's really different from the previous secession movements we've had in this country. It's a movement that's really been exacerbated by an extreme brand of Tea Party rhetoric that has really exploited a real crisis in rural America. I mean, if you think about it, you just heard on that video there a lot of discussion about access to high caliber guns. But what about providing high quality education, which would do much more for rural America and the plight of rural America? You didn't hear anything about that. You didn't hear anything beyond resentment. No real policy solutions to the problems of rural Americans.
Yeah, Mayor Brown, what do you make of that and the idea of this being in rural parts of California where, not to generalize, but people don't think of the Tea Party as necessarily being as strong on the West Coast, nor there being as much of an interest in some of that Second Amendment absolutism?
Well, in part, it clearly has implications for the Tea Party, and it comes with the Tea Party's blessings. The conservative attitude, the absence of any full understanding of diversity, the indifference to almost every other problem that human beings experience regardless of where they live. You cannot live like that. You've got to be thinking of everybody, and you've got to be contributing in one fashion or another to a solution to all the problems, not just making it a bigger problem for yourself by isolation. That's what this movement is attempting to do.
Che, let's look at this a little bit in the broader political context. And we were just in the previous block looking at Mississippi and a Tea Party challenge there and a lot of calls for a more historical conservatism. Do you think that in some sense the Republican Party gets to benefit from some of these passions and everyone feeling like they're really into American history? Or do you think this is really going to hobble them as they look towards another national race in 2016?
Oh, it's going to definitely hobble them. I mean, if you look at this recent census, only 16% of Americans live in rural America. And that is a number that is dropping every single year. A century ago, 72% of Americans lived in rural America. The decline of rural America is a big reason why the Republicans have lost the popular vote in 5 of the last 6 elections. However, as these voters have vanished, you have seen the rhetoric become more extreme. And, you know, we talk about the Tea Party versus GOP. Well, this last weekend, we just had the Star of Duck Dynasty at a Republican leadership conference. So that tells you exactly where the GOP is going. It's not in a positive place. It is certainly not in a place that is designed to answer any of the very real needs that people in rural California and the rest of rural America really do have. If you look at, for example, in California, the parts of the state that really want to secede, that is the part of the state that has been most affected by climate change, particularly the terrible drought that we've had in California. However, the Republican leadership, including that Star of Duck Dynasty, was very clear that they deny that.
And Mayor Brown, we're about to go. The last point I wanted to mention is the California counties that are looking at this on secession have 25% of California's land mass, but only 1% of the population, sort of the reverse of maybe what you had in San Francisco. So in that sense, are they really out of leverage as they ask for more power?
They're totally out of leverage. When this country went to one man, one vote in Baker versus Carr, the power of the people who had small populations began to wane. And now it's where, in fact, should be. We ought to be representing people, not land. We should be representing people, not trees. And that's what this nation has said in its democratic way. And believe me, rural America has got to be obedient to that, as rural America was years ago.
Yeah, and one person, one vote seems to make more sense than one tree, one vote. Willie Brown and Che Komandori, thank you both for joining me tonight.